Hey folks, I know this isn't the usual in Idiot Imports, but I just want to bring up the fact that PlayAsia basically paid for this game outright, and if you want to support me and my channel and help me have a little bit extra budget in order to afford these videos, please go and use the referral link in the description to buy something off PlayAsia, and you can use the coupon code BLUEVITA to save some money off your next order. Thanks again and enjoy the show. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I know a lot of you are going to be very happy to see this, but I felt like I had to after my videos praising the virtues and not really going over the woes of the Daisenryaku games. They released it on Steam, and not only did they release it on Steam, they released it in full English. Now, this is absolutely bizarre. Let me just get rid of my, oh, I can't get rid of the mouse cursor. That kind of sucks. It's absolutely bizarre. The thing about Daisenryaku is that it's been a Japanese-only series for years. The last time it came out in English was on the PlayStation 2. If that gives you any idea how long it's been since there's been an English one. And someone linked me this on Steam just a day or so ago. It literally came out yesterday. And I was like, what the hell? I have to get this right now and try it. And unfortunately, I'm quite disappointed. So we're going to have a little bit of a look around at the settings first. You can see there's an option for changing a lot of what's displayed on screen. And some of it is a little bit weird. Now, they have a 100-something page manual included with the Steam version. And that manual is actually pretty good from what I read of it. There wasn't much in the way of, oh, go away, Windows. There wasn't that much in the way of, like, bad English or anything like that, but there is a lot of weird stuff going on inside the actual game proper, and I'm not sure why. But you can see that there's most of it makes sense, in all fairness. It's just a little bit odd in the way of, it's just a little bit odd in the way they use English. So, like, say autosave down here, for example. At end of turn or each camp. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I think that means something along the lines of every time you take over a new building, but I can't be sure. It's probably in the, whatchamacallit, the manual, because the manual is actually very detailed about what everything does, including things like skills. So, you probably want to go read that if you're that determined to get into Daisenryaku. As for the volumes, we're going to turn the sound off right away because, well, admittedly, the sound effects aren't too bad. The background music, though, actually, to be fair, the background music isn't too bad either, but it's all 2-minute loops, and turns in this game can take way longer than 2 minutes. I can promise you that much right now. So, we have two main combat modes. We do have our usual set of editors, so we can edit our the countries, we can edit the individual units, we can edit the maps, and we can edit the rules. And this is all well and good. Like, this has always been an interesting, like, set of things that the Daisenryaku series does. It lets you go in and edit pretty much anything in the game. Any of its stats and any of the particular, like, manufacturers, so you can make your own custom countries out of your own custom units. And this game apparently has over 1,500 units in it. Unfortunately, there's no quick way to scroll down. The control scheme in this game is a bit weird, mainly because I'm playing it on an Xbox 360 controller, because that's actually a thing you can do with the PC version, which is kind of surprising. But then again, at the same time, it didn't come out on PlayStation 4, so it's not like it's a massive, massive surprise. But yeah, you can see that there is an absolute ton of units to edit of many different types, which is nice. And of course, you can edit the rules and edit the map, but we won't bother going into them because once you see what the actual rules and stuff look like, it'll make a lot more sense. But yes, so we have two different game modes here. We've got the Neo Master Combat mode, which is like a campaign of sorts, and we've got free mode. So if we go into Neo Master Combat mode first, I haven't actually gone too far into this mode, mainly because I tried to play 2 games in free mode, because I was trying to get organized, you know, trying to get used to the game system, because I haven't played Perfect 4.0 before. The game itself makes fine amount of sense. So if you go into the unit organization, we can confirm our units, and basically this is the 45 units we start out with. We can have a maximum of 50, and we can sell whichever ones we like. So if I were to pick, say, the A10 Thunderbolt, for example, I could sell it. So now I've got a few extra purchase points that I can use, and then I can go back to production weapon. As I said, the English in this game is a bit weird. And I can choose whichever unit I want to buy out of the entire stack of 1,500. No, I'm not kidding. They don't restrict your units in any way, so you can literally buy anything from any faction that you so desire, and you can filter out any set of units here. So if I only want to see what ground units I can buy, I can do that. So I can buy any sorts of infantry or what appears to be vehicles of some kind, and I can actually select them and press the X button, and it'll show me all their stats. There is a lot of stats here. Everything from how much movement it takes to all the skills on the left and the middle there, what it can load. Usually this means stuff like simple cars or infantry or something like that, and all of its weaponry and how effective it is on, well, anything in general. Now, the game does have a tutorial to teach you about this, but not only is it quite hidden, it's not really that effective. There's a few reasons for this, and we'll get into why when I can figure out how to use the controller to get out of this damn menu. So yeah, you can also set emblems for specific units. Not entirely sure what the purpose of this is. I think it's meant to give units a specific set of, what's the word I'm looking for, benefits, but yeah, I'm not really sure. But if we go to Marching Map Select, you can see that it'll show you all the different maps you have available. Now, the maps usually have different objectives. So you can see here, occupation and enforcement of main enemy facilities / urban areas, with terrible line breaks, by the way. And you can see that all the different missions have different... Not only do they have different objectives, but you've also got things like CPU, allies, and enemies to go against. So, admittedly, they actually give you a fair amount to work with here. It's not massively in-depth or complicated, and when you win a battle, you get to bring back the units that manage to survive, and you can level them up individually, which is also something you can do in free mode. Hello, Karmas. So that's something you can do individually in free mode, and you get extra campaign points in order to buy new units, which is good. It would make for an interesting campaign if I was going to play for very long, because... Well, let me put it this way, the game is not particularly great about its bugs, and we're going to get into free mode now just to demonstrate what that's like. So free mode works the same way it does in the other Daisenryaku games that have this. You basically play matches one by one, and you get, if you bring back any units live, they become my troops, and then you can send them into other areas. So if we can use the L and R buttons, L1 and R1 buttons, I should say, to swap between these tabs here. We've got scenarios, and we've got normal maps, and we've got campaign maps. And campaign maps are where you can see the general things. Brain, work with me here. It's where you can see the tutorials. However, the tutorials are not fantastic, if I'm being completely honest. The tutorials are basically just really, really simple explanations of the mechanics. There are some mechanics that don't really get explained, like, I believe they call it Mega Hex, which is one of the methods of attack. It's basically like things like nuclear missiles, ballistic missiles. And there are a couple of things here, like you've got campaign maps, for example. You can make campaigns that go over multiple different maps, and you carry your units between them. And these are actually things you can create manually outside of the game. You can make maps inside of the game, then you go outside of the game and use a utility that they included with the game in order to wrap them up into campaigns, which is a little bizarre, but whatever. The one thing that's notable about all the fact that all these editors, though, is that they don't include Steam Workshop support. It seems so obvious on the surface of it, but they just don't, for whatever reason that I cannot for the life of me determine, but whatever, we'll work with it anyway. So, you've got scenario maps, and then you've got just your regular old maps. And we're going to go and do a regular old map. We're going to try and find one that has a bunch of different AI opponents on it, just for the purpose of demonstration of multiple different AI units. North, south, east, west. Yeah, limited number of turns, 4 participating camps. There's no comments on these, oddly enough, but oh well. So we'll select that, and it'll let us come here, and we can actually do things like change whether or not The maps go from day to night. Night is actually a different mechanic in this game and will affect the reliability of certain units. We can change the winning conditions, we can change the rules, and there is a ton of different rules here. You can change things like market price, which is a weird little mechanic where the value of certain units goes up and down depending on the turn. Initial production, which will let you do a production wave before you do any other kinds of waves. And there's just, you can see all the different options you've got here, and it makes for a very different set of rules every time you play something. And there's other sets of rules like zone of control and hiding and fatigue level, and oh good lord, there is so much here. And it is really hard to go over all of it when the game won't stop crashing. Oh boy, we'll get into that. So yeah, you can also come down here and change things like unit limits, production limits, how their AI will act, and what the ratio is of air, ground, and sea units, I believe that is. And of course, their faction. There are tons of different factions in this game. Did you think I was kidding? Look at all of them. Good lord. And you can also change how much capital everybody starts with and what their alliances are. So I'm thinking that I'm going to be allied with red and we'll be going up against green and yellow. However, for the first few turns, I'm going to make things relatively simple for you. I'm going to go and turn on automated turn taking because, I mean, Jesus wept. So if I go to change a player, I can change this to computer and then we can hit choose. And then we'll just let them act it out on the larger view here. So yeah, this is Daisenryaku. It is... Yeah, the map is going to have a little bit of trouble keeping up, so we're going to keep it in the large view for a few turns. So this is Daisenryaku. It's a large-scale strategy game. In fact, the game's name literally means great strategy. Daisenryaku means great strategy, literally in Japanese. I'm not even joking. So, it is very easy to understand what it is, but I will go over some of the basic mechanics while the enemies and stuff move around anyway. And the basic idea is that it is a great strategy game that is more or less a realistic version of Advance Wars. And I say realistic kind of lightly. Some of the mechanics in this game aren't realistic at all, but they do have a lot of different units and a lot of different reliabilities and just general stuff like that. What I'm trying to say with that is general units will interact realistically with each other. There isn't generally like a sense to make one faction overpowered, but sometimes it's just how it happens. They try to be more realistic about their unit sets more than anything else. And when they are, they generally make it so that, you know, some units will probably end up more overpowered than others. It's just what happens, but nevertheless, everybody's just moving about right now. The game has a very simple set of mechanics to understand, although, as you saw, there were a lot of rules you could turn on and off if you wanted to. So, we'll go over some of the really basic stuff first. Every unit can go over, I think there's 6 different heights. There's high, there's super high, there's high, there's low, this is all altitudes. There's ground level, there's deep sea, and then there's just regular sea level. And these can all hold different units. There are many different kinds of units in these games. You've got artillery, you've got general like main battle tanks, you've got infantry fighting vehicles, you've got submarines, you've got tons of different kinds of ships, and all sorts of general stuff like that, you know? Pretty much any kind of military unit you can think of will be available in this game somehow. There are things like C-130s that you can load units and vehicles into and then drop them off over certain areas. Apparently the mine layer just managed to capture some enemy troops. Alright, let's hit the pause button just for a moment. Because I should be able to put it back onto the regular turns now. I just need to... There. Right. So now I can go back and put the player setting back to me. So now hopefully we can do a little bit more with the demonstration. Okay, so now it's yellow's turn. And now it's my turn. So, yeah, marker price isn't actually applying in this game, so now it's my turn. So let's see what my units have come up with. Now, there's one of the problems in the game. There's a few weird problems like these, but that's just one of them. And that is that the zooming and the scrolling in this game takes a while, and there doesn't seem to be a way to speed it up. So what has my guy been up to exactly? It looks like he's been producing a lot of ground units, but doesn't seem to be thinking about many ways to get them over there. What's this? This is a Kai Phantom 2, and this is an air tanker, but it doesn't have anything in... Oh, it's a resupply plane. Well, that would make sense. So here's the way the game works. You can move units on their height plane. They can't change altitudes. Their altitudes determine things like how likely they are to be hit. So you can see here that you've got super high, high, and low, and you've got accuracies for all of them. Hard armor and soft armor, which is, I'd like to think it's obvious, but there are things like tanks that have a hard armor, and then there are things like infantry fighting vehicles that have soft armor. Then you've also got ships and submarines, you've got accuracy against all of them, you've got all sorts of different features and attack types, so you can only hurt certain units with certain things. And you've got Mega Hex, that was a sneeze. You've got Mega Hex, which does damage to everything within a certain area. There are only certain weapons you can use once you've moved. There are units that can transform, so things like artillery trucks that are dragging around artillery cannons, those can move around. And it looks like that there's plenty of... there's no combat going on for blue just yet. So what about red? What's red up to? I don't actually have any info on red's location. They have been destroying a lot, actually. So, just for the purpose of demonstration, I need to actually put the battle settings back on. So if I put the display all battles setting back on, that should hopefully show us simple battles. Well, I'll have to show you real fighting a couple of times, but then I'll have to turn it back off. So, yeah, it looks like the battle hasn't exactly progressed on the blue side. So let's actually change our player back to the... Let's change it to the red. How about that? Alright, so here's red. What's red up to right now? Well, we've got a plane coming in over there. We've got a few helicopters and other planes and stuff like that. What's this? I think this is a plane? No, that's an MLRS. Wonderful. Troopers, and this is an RF-5A. What's its armament? It's got nothing. And it's probably about to crash into the ground. We have units here. Okay, we have a C-130 Hercules. A Tiger. Cool. This ought to be good at getting rid of a certain kind of opponent. A really annoying one. That is, extra planes. So now that we're in the battle screen here, you can see that you can select any type of ammo that you've got that will work on this kind of unit, and you can fire it at them. And you can see what the predicted outcome will be. So in the case of the enemy on the right, you can see that I will completely wipe it out because it doesn't seem to have anything to attack me with except the autocannon, which has a really, really low accuracy. So if we hit choose here, we can see the actual battle. Okay, it got one of our units, but we took it down, so that works pretty well for us. And as you can see, we have lost the ability to move this unit. Now, units have many, many, many different kinds of abilities. Like, just to use an example, this plane here has the destruction ability. Does it actually have the ammunition to do so? It does, right. So, if I move it over, say, a yellow ability, and I hit attack... Oh, no. Hang on. I need to actually move it over another one. Is this actually... Yeah, this is owned by the enemy. Oh, I can order them to split up. That's cool. Usually the option to destroy something is right there if a unit has destruction ability, which is kind of annoying, but hang on. What about you? You are the RF-5A, and there's a tank below them. Okay. So there's a destruction ability which you can use to blow up things like enemy places, and then you can just come back and reconstruct them later. There are all sorts of little abilities like that. You've got combat engineers which can do things like build and destroy bridges. You can lay mines. You can do all sorts of things. Like, here's the combat engineer. It can do things like refuel enemies, refuel people as well, which is actually really nice. Everything has fuel and fatigue. Fatigue is combat fatigue. So an enemy that's just been in combat, for example, this one here, will have a certain amount of fatigue. Where is the fatigue on this screen? I lose everything in this bloody massive screen with absolutely everything in it. Fatigue. Someone's probably seen it already. Screw it. Back to this screen because I know where it is. Fatigue is there. Oh, this enemy doesn't actually get fatigue. Okay. Well, ground units get fatigue, and if they get 2 fatigue... Oh, I know, I forgot. On this battle, it's actually disabled, isn't it? With units with fatigue, when that rule is turned on, they can't fight or counterattack. So if you get a unit in there to take out a unit that needs counterattacking, well, you're going to bloody destroy them, aren't you? We can take a shot at this helicopter with our AMRAAMs. Because why not? That'll hurt it. Generally, you'll want to turn these battle scenes off as soon as you possibly can, because they take up a lot of time. Thankfully, the load times aren't anywhere near as bad as, say... this actually has a destruction ability, so... it's not destroy ability, but I can just fire at a space and hope I hit something, which is actually pretty cool, but nevertheless, you can understand the general concept behind it, so... Yeah, let's go disable that option, shall we? Same for the battle screen. We'll leave all battles on, but we'll have it on simple display, which basically just is that static screen you saw before the battle, but with a bunch of extra stuff going on. So, yeah, so there are multiple phases in a turn. There's the ballistic missile phase, which will move missiles. There's the, brain work with me here. There's the budget phase, where you get your money. There's the movement phase, which we're doing now, the movement and attacking phase, which everyone gets to move and attack in. And there's 2 other phases that I'm not thinking of. And the last phase you need to worry about is production. So I've hit end phase here. Most of my guys haven't moved. But I should have probably done turn commission, because turn commission is actually really useful. It moves and attacks with all your units that you haven't moved and attacked with yet. So you can get So you can do, like, the more important moves yourself, and then you can do other moves later. But anyway, now that you're in the production phase, you can select an area, whether it be an army base, a airborne base, or a water base, and you can then choose what you want to produce that turn. Each area can hold up to 6 units. So, say I wanted to produce a couple more main battle tanks, for example. By the way, the scrolling in this game is a bit weird. If you scroll to the bottom, it'll scroll you back to the top, but it'll leave your cursor down near the bottom of that screen, so you'll be at the bottom of the first window, which is bizarre. So let's say I produce a couple of tanks there. Now that's going to cost me a bit of war capital, and that's absolutely fine. I can hit the X button while I'm in there to see what the details are, but I'm not going to do that. And we're going to put the AI back on so that we can watch a few more turns, and I can explain what the problems are. So, the actual game itself controls and runs pretty okay. So you can see what the results are with the enemies changing. So that Hind just got destroyed. That MBT got hit by the Corvette. And look, an error occurred. Yes, that happens a lot. Thank you very much for bringing this up basically immediately, game. I'm not sure if an error occurred is meant to be like, there was an error with the actual unit, like there was a unit malfunction, for example, as in, like, say the engine jammed up or whatever, and that's why it died. But, I mean, this game doesn't have a particularly great grasp on the English language. As I said, the English in this game is a bit weird, to the point where some of the sentences haven't even been translated yet. One of my favorite examples is that only in some cases will this happen, but sometimes if you try and produce too many units for one particular area, the message won't be translated or will be entirely in Japanese. This happens in more than one place throughout the game, but it is quite consistent. I'm not entirely sure what the deal is, but it's there and it's a thing. Hang on, I'll zoom back out to the bigger view so that we can stand a chance of seeing more stuff. But yes, the game also has a few bugs. There are lots of crashing issues, according to the couple of Steam reviews that are already up on the game. And there are also issues with the game not exactly accepting the fact that you're trying to play it. I played 2 free mode matches. The first match was a total failure, so I tried to play it, I really did, but for whatever reason, the game decided it would be fun to simply lock up the interface at one point and not let me move any troops. I had saved a couple of turns before, but you can see just what the general pace of this game would be, aka it's glacial. So you really do need to worry about the game just deciding to throw its hands up and say, fuck this shit, I'm out. And the game will just stop. I had to Alt F4 the game, and when I did, it went from taking up one of my CPU cores to all of my CPU cores. It was a bit bizarre. I mean, I am playing on my GPD Win 2, which is entirely capable of running this game under normal circumstances, but for some reason, trying to Alt F4 out of it when the entire interface had frozen up was just a nightmare, and I had to go and actually kill the process for some reason. But yes, the game is just technically unstable. That's just all there is to it, really. The amount, like, that was one battle, and then it happened again in the second battle, so it really is quite something else. I gave up on the first battle because it was going to take a few extra turns to get everything back running as it was before, and it just, oh man, it just doesn't work. And there are so many bugs they fixed already. Like, you should see the bug list they fixed in the individual patches. It's really disappointing, in all honesty. Yes, there are lots of other mechanics I haven't gone over yet. Like, there are things like capturing enemy bases, which you do by moving certain kinds of enemies in and then just holding over them for a couple of turns. Of course, there are tons of different rules and mechanics that I can't really go over, but thankfully you should be able to freely view the manual, which actually details all of that stuff pretty well, including all the special skills and all other things different enemies can do. Like, there's stuff like ECM jamming, which is actually kind of impressive, and all other kinds of different little mechanics you can use in order to try and completely wipe the floor with some people. And again, with the ability to change all the rules and stuff to how you want to play the game, it makes the game really interesting in that sense. Like how it would make it so that you can basically recreate, say, the entirety of the German and English armies in the late 30s. You could do like an entire Second World War simulation with this thing if you felt like it. But again, considering that you can't actually download any extra units or anything from something like the Steam Workshop, and you're limited entirely to what you can find on the internet, and considering that Daisenryaku isn't a very popular game series, and the fact that this might actually be a bit of a problem, it might actually be a bit of a problem actually trying to get some familiarity with it in the West, mainly because of the fact that the game's so fucking buggy right now for no discernible reason. Yeah, it might be a problem. It's a shame too, because the game runs okay. It doesn't require much in the way of like resources or anything. Like the minimum requirements they say is Core 2 Duo and a graphics card that can do OpenGL. So I'm running this on like an Intel 615 HD, and it is running fine. Like, I haven't noticed much in the way of graphical glitches, although the game doesn't have a dedicated full screen mode. It's just this weird full screen mode that's only halfway there, and it has things like the Windows scroll bars, which seems a little lazy, but at the same time, I guess I'm not going to tell them off for taking advantage of what they have. So it looks like the AI was using attack helicopters on that Corvette, and it did eventually work. There is a little bit of random elements to this game, and all the different terrains have different things like what amounts that you can move through them, and just general how much you can see through them, and what their defense will be like on that sort of terrain. You know the drill. It's a very, very numbers-driven game, and I can imagine that very few certain people will appreciate that. And again, the pace is very slow. Like, it's slower than most other games I've played. I've played a fair bit of Europa Universalis 4, which isn't exactly something I thought I would enjoy, but apparently I do. And its pace is faster than this game by a factor of like 3 or 4. The speed of this game can be incredibly slow, especially if you do everything by hand. Thankfully, you do have the automated move units around sort of functionality, but still, it can be really, really bad. Like, massively bad. Apparently, green and yellow are against each other at this point. I'm not sure what's going on there. I thought they were supposed to be with each other, but... Huh. Okay. And it looks like it's blue going again, but they don't really have many ways to get over to the other island as of yet, so that's going to kind of suck for them. Red is apparently maintaining control of their part of the mainland relatively well. They are definitely advancing, though. I could leave this here for a ton of turns, but nothing can really communicate just how slow the pace is. And now, some people would like this. Some people would love the ability to individually move every single unit. I can understand why, but I mean, goddamn, in a game like this, I mean, I said I enjoy it before, and to be fair, if I'm in exactly the right mood, I still do, but I can understand why it would be hard for some people, but it's just the technical performance, man. The fact that the game can crash at any time, and it just seems to be very happy to do so. The whole saving after every turn thing is nice to have, but, you know, it doesn't change the fact that you still might have to go through like a 20-minute to 30-minute turn. Has it actually been saving my game? 1548, what? Huh. That's not great. Hang on, maybe I have to make a manual save before it'll actually do the saving for me. Resume the CPU logic. It's funny, it's almost fun to play this on the go again, because as I said, I am playing this on a Win 2, which has like a little Xbox 360 controller built in, so I can actually play this on the go if I feel like it, but yeah, it's just those bugs, man. It's not ready for prime time. When it is, I'll be more than happy to come back and give it another look. And it's kind of impossible to demonstrate bugs in this because, well, they just aren't likely to come up in even a half-an-hour video. Like, this is the sort of game you can play for a few hours at a time and not even make that much progress. Like, it's been 12 turns. If you had done those 12 turns manually, you'd probably be at the 2-hour mark by now. So yeah, it's not particularly fantastic on that sort of front, but, well, I guess you can only really take my word for it. And that's if you do take my word on these sorts of things. But still, there are other problems with the game as well. Like, one of the reviews that has been brought up says that there are things like outdated unit databases, so some of the factions don't exactly keep up with the real-world counterparts. Kind of understandable, considering that the, you know, it's military development moves forward very quickly, but at the same time, it might be some units are missing completely, and just other minor things like that, but hopefully you've gotten a general idea of what the game is like. And again, as I said before, I have always liked these games, perhaps unfairly to some. The idea of being able to control a massive war with relatively realistic sort of just general gameplay. I don't want to call it outright realistic, but I do want to call it something that feels like it. It definitely feels like having all these real-world units with weaponry that doesn't, like, actively destroy everything, you know? It feels realistic enough in its unit selection, weapon selection, and how those weapons work and interact with each other, how the terrain works and interacts with all the different units and all that. And if you're up for a very, very slow-paced sort of grand strategy title that's basically advanced wars taken into the real world, then you might be into this, but at the same time, I'd recommend being very careful because some of the bugs in this game are kind of ridiculous, and running into them into the middle of a match that you haven't been able to save for is a very bad thing. Now, has it actually been saving this time? It hasn't been. I swear to God I turned that on. Didn't I turn that on? I swear I turned that... Yeah, I turned that on in video. Maybe it only works for the campaign mode. The Neo Master Combat mode. That would be very unfortunate, considering that the game is just as likely to error out in free mode as anywhere else. Yeah, you can see the fighter jet moving to take on the artillery. That's usually the best way to go about it, because that artillery can be deadly at distance. You do not want to go up against a bloody howitzer if you can avoid it. Trust me, I know this all too well. Usually my battles in this game devolve to get my tanks through their front line to their artillery before they completely wipe me out. I've never been particularly good at the military strategy of Daisenryaku, I must say. And especially in this one where you've got everything from ballistic missiles to ECM jammers to bloody mine layers and stuff. The first map I played on bloody Neo Master Combat Mode had all my units running into minefields. Every single one. At least I did try Neo Master Combat Mode for like 10 minutes, but it is basically the same sort of gameplay. It's more or less what you see here with the units and the different kinds of terrain. Just everything is basically the same, just instead of having preset factions, you have a list of units you can swap out with literally anything else in the game, which is nice. Oh, that large supply vehicle is two different kinds of screwed. So they're repairing the city to get more money out of it. Of course, there is one last thing, and I think we are pretty much done here. So we can just hit pause and go to the settings. But yeah, there is one last thing that this game doesn't have, which is thoroughly bizarre that it doesn't, in all honesty. Online multiplayer. Not even LAN. It's entirely single player. Which kind of makes sense considering the whole modifiable units and production lines and all that sort of thing, but yeah, it can kind of suck only being able to play with yourself and just the AI, because the AI in this game can be a little bit silly sometimes. But yeah, that was a look at Daisenryaku Perfect 4.0, and unfortunately it's anything but. I mean, there are some things I can't do about it just due to the pure nature of what Daisenryaku is, and if it wasn't completely bugged just due to the fact that the game has this annoying tendency to crash at any time, or at the very least freeze, then I would probably be a lot more happy to recommend it, but at this point I can't. It just seems a bit unfortunate that I can't, but oh well. Hopefully they patch it up in the future, and it means that I didn't waste this $50 from PlayAsia on it, but, well, we'll see about that. They haven't exactly been great about fixing up the problems in the most recent Daisenryaku games, so I don't expect them to be. And the most annoying thing is that I'm actually getting another game from them inside of a week. So that's not going to be grand if the buggy performance of this isn't anything to speak for it. So there you go. This has been Blue Maxima. I apologize for putting you through another Daisenryaku video. I will see you all next time.